morning. How are you?
Hello. Good morning, ma'am.
Morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Hi guys. Hi guys.
Hi. I'm gonna ask you to keep all your cameras off, and then when we're going to start, when everybody has joined, I'll give them a minute because I still can see some people joining. Then we'll start, and we'll be ready to go. I think there's too many, and I'm gonna ask
Ma'am,
you all to
are you our
put
teacher now?
yourselves on mute.
Hello.
Only for today. Mr. Kazi will come back tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay. Right. So today I'm going to teach you about metals and non-metals. Welcome. I'm Arifa
Okay.
Hafichi and we're doing
Ma'am.
grade 5 natural science.
Yes,
So if
ma'am.
you can
Yes, ma'am.
mute, okay. What I'm going to ask you to do is actually mute yourself. And then if you have a question or if you want me to go slowly or if you want to answer a question, you'll keep cameras off. Then all you can do is pick your hand up. My host will unmute you and then you get to speak. Will that be okay?
Yes, ma'am.
No problem. Right. So by the end of this lesson, you'll be able to know more about what a metal is or a non-metal and how you can decide what materials to use when you want to make or build something. So you need to know basically what metals are and what non-metals are because we need them to either build something or to make something and we need to know what to use. So it's important to learn about metals and non-metals. Now, let's look at these pictures here. You can raise your hand if you want to speak and my host will unmute you. Now, what material do you think is used in picture A? Yes, Lasigo. What material do you think it's used? Is it a metal? Is it a non-metal?
It's a metal.
Hi,
It's a metal.
it's a metal. Good, well done. Okay, so it's made out of tin. Okay, and in picture B, what do you think it's made out of? I'll ask my host to unmute one person.
Me.
Yes, you. What is picture B a metal or a non-metal?
Non-metal.
It's
Non-metal.
non-metal. Very good. Well done. So it's basically made out of wood. Now the difference between the two is picture A, the tin can rust. Okay, and also it's not very safe because if you had to scratch yourself against the tin and if it's rusted, then you basically will either hurt yourself or if you don't treat it and wash it with Dettol properly, it can become infected and it will have you'll suffer from different problems later on. Then the wood is much safer to use because it prevents injury unless you have unless it gets over time, like with age, then it tends to get termites and then you get borer. So the most safest thing to basically build a substance that you can use to build houses is bricks because then it doesn't rust and neither does it get termites. Now it's important to know that the metals and non-metals, they are two different classes of materials. Now each class has its own unique properties and the properties are things that are special or unique about an object or a material. So that means that like picture A is different from picture B. It has different characteristics. It's unique and it's different. Unique means it's different in its own way. And we use the properties of materials to describe what it is like. So, like for example,
Of course.
you have properties of, you did before solids, liquids, and gases. So they have different
Yes.
properties. Okay, so like even with metals and non-metals, they also have different properties. Okay. Now, what, yes, Naledi, you have a question for me? Hi. Okay, so so now what materials we do you think is used to build these houses? We discussed this. Now, which house do you think is going to rust near an ocean? Does anybody know? Picture A or picture B? Yes. Hi. I
Wood,
can't hear
metal,
you.
and or steel.
Okay, so picture A basically would, if you had to build it near the ocean, it's going to rust quickly because there's lots of moisture in the air, as opposed to picture B. So one of the properties of this tin metal is basically that when it is exposed to moisture,
Ma'am,
it
ma'am,
rusts very quickly. Yes. Hi. Okay, so we have metals. Metals, the characteristics and the properties of metals. We have that they are usually shiny and they shine that when you see and the light reflects off the surface of the metal, it is called luster. So it is the surface of the metal when it shines is called luster. Then we have most metals are hard and they feel heavy. So one of the properties and the characteristics of the metal is that it is hard and it feels
ma'am.
heavy. Yes, I can hear you. If you want to speak, then you're going to raise your hand and then I'll allow you to speak, but you need to stop saying ma'am, 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 unless you don't have a question. Okay. So now we have metals. We say metals are dense as their particles are packed closely together. Also, I'm going to ask you to keep your chat according to the information that we have over here. Then you'd be able to concentrate on what is I'm saying. If you are lost, then please let me know and I'll go a bit slower so you'll be able to understand. Okay, so we say that metals are hard and they are heavy. So this is one of the characteristics of metals. It is hard. That means when you touch it, that it's going to feel hard. It won't be soft. So if you touch your desk right now, you can feel that it is hard. But if you had to touch your skin, you'll feel that it is soft. So that is the difference. Okay. Then we say that we say metals are dense as their particles are packed together. So that means you know the characteristics of a solid, liquid, and a gas. So in a solid, the particles are packed close together. Close together means that they right next to each other and they're very tight. So that's what makes the metal a solid because it is dense. So that's you would have done characteristics of solids, liquids, and gases. And you knew from previous lessons that a solid, all the particles are closely packed together to give it a definite shape. So this is what we mean by particles are dense and it is closely packed together. And that's a characteristic of a metal. Then we say that metals are good conductors of electricity and heat. Basically, what that means that if the metal conducts electricity, that means electricity can pass through it. Who knows one conductor of electricity? Can you give me an example? I can give you a clue. If you look at your wires that's attaching your computer or a wire that's touching your toaster, then you're going to, what is inside the wire? Does anyone want to say? So it's the copper wire that's inside the toast, inside the wire. Now that is a metal and that is a good conductor of electricity and heat as well. So I'm looking at this chat and I'm going to please remind you that you're going to talk about information about this lesson, not anything else, because it will keep you focused and you won't worry about anything else and you only worry about listening to the information and you'll be able to understand it better. Because if you're going to talk about other things, then you're not going to be able to understand the information. Okay. Also, I am Miss Hafaji. Mr. Kazi, for those that have joined now, will be joining you tomorrow. He was unable to do the lesson today. So we say that metals are good conductors of electricity. And because they're good conductors of electricity, they provide heat as well. Okay, now there's a new word for you to learn. They say metals are malleable. Now, malleable basically means that they are shaped into flat sheets. Now, they make metals into flat sheets because they are ductile. Now, ductile means that they can be made into thin wire. So from these flat sheets, they make thin wire, so electricity can pass through you, and you need small thin wire to pass electricity through it because those are basically your cables that has the metal inside it, and your cable is surrounded with a rubber wire or rubber whole package, holding around it. And why it has a rubber or a plastic tubing around this metal is because the plastic is not a good conductor of electricity. And if you had to touch the wire, for example, then you would know that you would not get electrocuted or you would not get burnt. So this is why they make metals into flat sheets. So we say that they are malleable and they're also ductile. Now, most metals can be heated to high temperatures without melting or changing their shape. So when we heat metals, basically we heat it at a very high temperature because it won't really melt if you heat it at a low temperature. So you heat it at a high temperature, and when it's heated, then it changes its shape. Now, which is one of the reasons why pots and pans are made out of metal. Now, extreme high temperatures doesn't mean that when you put it on your stove and you're heating your food that it's going to burn. It's not that. Now, high temperatures, I mean that it's so high that it's hotter than your stove. That's how high it's going to be for it to change its shape to actually make pots and pans and things like that. Now, you're going to ask me, where are metals found? If anybody wants to know. Now, metals basically are mined from earth. So it's found deep down in the layers of earth. So miners dig down into the earth, they form mines, and then they extract metal pieces. Then they melt these metal pieces, and then they make these flat sheets out of them, and then they send it to factories, and these factories, they use this metal through heating and molds, and then they make um, uh, things out of it. Okay, like for example, they make pots, they make pans, or they make poles. So whatever people need, then they or require, then they manufacture these items from the metals. Now, sometimes when metal gets old, it becomes dull. Dull means that it's not going to shine. So it has lost um, its shine. So basically, when metals become old, they lose their shine. Then we have non-metals. I'm going to give you the first, what I did here was I gave you all the characteristics of metals and properties. So in the test, they can ask you what are list 3 or 4 characteristics of metals, and you list one of these here. Okay, then we're going to go to non-metals, and we're going to find out what the characteristics of those non-metals are. So now we know that metals are not shiny and they tend to be dull. So non-metals are not shiny and they are dull, so that it doesn't have a shine. Okay, like for example, if you look at your coins, parents give you coins or to buy food at the tuck shop. Now, if you look at your coins, now when they first give it to you, it would be shiny. That means that um, uh, it's brand new. But over time, you'll find that metals are not shiny anymore. So I'm going to ask my host that if you're going to continue pressing exclamation marks and question marks to either remove you or to stop you from chatting. So I suggest you stop doing that and focus on the lesson. Okay, so non-metals are shiny, but they tend to be dull. So you could see that through the money that you have. So sometimes they're brand new, they come from the bank, they are shiny because it is new. But over time, it gets dull. And I'm sure you would have noticed that. Okay, so I have a question, yes? Hi. Okay, so I'll continue. So many non-metals are not flexible. That means not bendy. When you say not bendy, it means that it's not flexible, but it is brittle. This means that when it breaks, there's enough force to break it. Okay, so when we say non-metals are not bendy and it is brittle, that means that it can bend. Okay, if you try to bend it with enough force, then it will not bend. So that means this is because all the particles that are close to each other and makes it a solid, so you cannot bend metal. Now, non-metals do not conduct electricity or heat, so we call that insulators. Can anybody give me an example of another insulator? Yes, I'll ask my host to unmute you, or you can press unmute and then you can tell me an example. Hi.
Hi.
Hi, I can hear you.
Ma'am, yes, background.
You have?
You have speaking background, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay, it's coming from your side. So basically an example of insulator is plastic or rubber or wood. Now these do not conduct electricity, so they are called insulators. Okay, so metals are mostly, strong and they are solid. Hi, can I, you want to know something or I can explain something to you? Okay, so metals are strong and they are solid. Then we say metals are malleable and ductile. That means that they can be hammered into flat sheets or they can be bent into different shapes. Then we say metals are shiny or silvery, especially when they are new. So that means shiny or silvery, that means it is bright. Okay, so metals are also cold. If you go and you had to touch a pot, for example, that is not on the stove, that means it's just straight from the fridge or from your cupboard, not your fridge, sorry. Or even if you had to touch your gate, you will find that it is cold. Okay, so that's one of the characteristics. And then the characteristics of a non-metal, we say it can be soft or flexible like rubber. So non-metals are basically soft. You can bend it. So flexible means that you can bend it, like rubber is an example of it. Then you can also have non-metals that are hard and brittle. Now, an example of a non-metal that's hard and brittle is glass. So in your test, they can ask you, give an example of a non-metal that is soft and an example of a non-metal that is hard. So then you're going to say metals that are non-metals that are soft. For an example of it is rubber, and non-metal that is hard is glass. Then non-metals do not have a silvery appearance. Okay, so it's not doesn't have luster in it, and it tends to be dull. Then non-metals can be grouped into different categories like ceramics, wood, rubber, plastic, glass. Okay, so non-metals they grouped into different categories. So these categories you need to learn them of how to group non-metals. It is ceramics, it is wood, it is rubber, it is plastic, and glass. So in the test, they can ask you, name 5 different groups of non-metals. What would you say? Does anybody want to tell me? What would you say? Okay, you're going to say, hi, I can hear you.
Ma'am.
Hi.
Oh,
Okay, so non-metals basically are wood, rubber, plastic, glass, glass. Okay, and
yes.
basically metals usually feel neither hot nor cold. So non-metals, like how you get metals, they are cold when you touch them. Non-metals feel hot. They do not feel hot, neither do they feel cold. Okay, so does anybody need to know anything? The person that is unmuted, please can you mute yourself? Okay, so Mr. Kazi had wanted you to play this game called Kahoot. So I'm not going to be able to do it today. Uh, he'll probably do it tomorrow. So what you would need to play this game is you need your laptop or your computer, and then you also need a phone, a second device. So because he would take you to another site, and then you will type in the address that he gives you, and you'll go to this Kahoot address, and then you'll type in the code that he will give you. And you can play the game where he'll have questions based on this lesson, and you'll be able to press the correct answer. And from this, he can test your knowledge to see if you understood the lesson or not. It's a really fun game, and it would be interesting and fun for you to play it tomorrow. So you would also need 2 devices tomorrow. One device is the computer that you're going to listen from, or and another device is going to be your phone. So you can ask your mom and dad, if you do not have a phone, to please borrow one. Okay, so your next lesson is going to be on the uses of metals. What I'm going to do is, if you look at this picture here, so you can see this tire. So the tire has rubber around it. Now, why it has rubber around it is because on the car, you need a smooth surface for your car to roll on the tar. But what holds the tire is this metal rim inside. Can you see this rim? So it basically gives your tire its shape. So it holds it, and your car sits on these with an axle. I'm sure you've learned in previous lessons. I know you have because I've seen it. how to build car axles. So you know that the axles go through the hole in the tire, and your car sits on it. Okay. Then you have metal chains here, and then you have nails. It's all made out of metals. And with your nails, you need bolts. Okay. And then you have earrings. These earrings have made out of metal, and you have copper wire. The copper wire is what is inside your wires at home, surrounded with that plastic rubber tubing actually, and it has it's a good conductor of electricity. Okay, so let's say when you want to make a new product, like building for or tool or any kind of object, we first have to decide what the purpose of that product will be. So perhaps you want to make a tool for digging in the garden, or you want to make a dog kennel. Now, for your new puppy, if you have a puppy, for example. Now, the purpose of the product will help us to decide which is best material for us to make an object. Okay, so I'm doing a small recap of what you have previously we did. The purpose of choosing metals basically is because each metal that you use has to have a purpose. So when you find the purpose of the product or the object that you want to make, then you know whether to use a metal or a non-metal. Now, what would be the best material for digging? Who knows? Would you use a strong, durable tool with a sharp edge? Now, what is that made up of? Is it made up of a metal or a non-metal? Does anybody want to answer? You can raise your hand and my host will unmute you. It's made out of metal. Well done. I'm very proud of you. Thank you for that. Then what material would allow us to make a dog house that would keep the dog cool in summer and warm in winter? Now, what do you think you can make a dog house out of? Does anyone want to answer? Will you use a metal or a non-metal? Okay, so you're not going to use a metal because the metal is going to attract heat. Hi. I can hear you. Hello.
They are hackers, ma'am.
Okay, so who can give me 2 or 3 characteristics of a metal that we discussed earlier? Yes, I'll ask my host to unmute you. Does anybody want to try? Hi. Let me see if I can unmute you.
Yes,
Jordan, you are unmuted. Do you want to try?
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, I don't
Yes.
Ma'am,
One of the characteristics of a metal, that means a metal is shiny. That's, the properties we discussed. So one example I'm giving you, it is shiny. Do you want to add another one or explain what shiny means?
I don't know where you're gonna write it. Ma'am, it's
Ma'am,
brown.
a key. A key.
Got no space to do anything there.
Gold.
Okay, gold is a metal, so it's shiny. So when we say it's shiny because light reflects off the surface of the metal and it causes it to shine. So this is called luster. Hi, I can hear you.
Ma'am, and also platinum.
Platinum is metal, very good, well done. Now, I'll recap it so that you can understand it a bit better.
Ma'am,
So we
also
say
aluminum.
Okay, well done. So we say metals are shiny. That means light reflects off it. That causes it to shine. Then we say metals are hard. Hi.
Ma'am, and coins are also metals. Coins.
Coins are metals as well. Very good.
And iron.
Okay. And
Iron.
iron. Okay. So metals
Also
conduct
batteries.
electricity. Excuse me.
Batteries.
You said trees.
No, ma'am. I said batteries.
Batteries. Well done. That's very good. Well done. Okay, sorry, I didn't hear you properly. Those are metals. Well done. Now, metals are dense. Now, what do I mean by when I say metals are dense? Does anybody know? Metals are dense. Think about the particles together, the particles that make up the metal. When I say metals are dense, think about the characteristics of a solid. Anybody wants to try?
I'd like to.
Okay, try.
Ma'am, you were saying, what do you mean when you say metals are dense, right?
Yes. What does that mean? Think about the characteristics of a solid, then you'll be able to get that answer.
Ma'am, as in you're saying that
Ma'am?
it has a small hollow mark on the surface. What?
No, when I say metals are dense, there's some, I'll explain it just now, but let me give someone else a chance to try. Does anybody want to try? Hi.
Yes, ma'am.
What does it mean when I say
They are hard.
okay, they hard. Now, because it's hard, what makes it hard? Remember in grade 4 and also in grade 5 in term 1 you would have learned about solids, liquids and gases and the arrangement of the particles. So when we say metals are dense, what would we mean? What does it mean?
Confess.
Okay, when we say metals are dense, we basically mean that the particles of a metal are close together. Okay, so the person that is singing, I'm going to ask you to please stop.
Ma'am,
Hi.
I think they are hard and shiny.
Okay, so metals are dense basically means that the particles of a metal are close to each other. That's what it means. Okay, Bruno, you want to ask me a question?
10. Ma'am, I think they are hackers, ma'am.
10 plus 2, 11,
Okay,
12.
metals are dense basically means that the metals are close to each other. That's what it means. The particles in the metal, they're all next to each other in a fixed position in a definite shape. So that is what we mean by metals are dense. Okay, so tomorrow Mr. Kazi would come back and he'll be able to play the Kahoot game. What you can do is you can Google this YouTube lesson today. Then
You
I want you
mean
to
Mr.
screenshot.
Lucky?
Mr. Lucky is his surname is Mr. Kazi. I want you to Google the screen, and then I want you to screenshot this here. I'm going to show it to you. Yeah, screenshot this and learn it very well because these are the characteristics of a metal. And when he's going to play, to need all this information, and then you'd be able to answer it and we can see who's going to win. So I hope you had a lovely time listening to my lesson. I hope you have benefited from it. And I will see you again, Mr. Lucky or Mr. Kazi, he will see you again tomorrow. And have a lovely day. Goodbye,
Hi,
everybody.
ma'am.
Bye.
Bye, ma'am.
Bye.
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 Solele.
Bye.